statewide emergency. Bushfires continue to blaze through national parks and rural areas to the north and west of Sydney. In over a month, homes have been damaged and thousands of animals have perished. The New South Wales Premier and government have been criticised for being too slow to respond, a challenge compounded by last year's criticism for being too slow to respond to statewide floods. The Premier has been accused of cutting New South Wales fire and rescue budgets by more than 35% and the rural fire service by more than 75%. The former fire chief told various media outlets that he warned the government months ago about the upcoming dangerous fire season. The Prime Minister has said the fires are a state issue, not federal. However, the states rely on federal funding for air tankers that help control the raging bushfires.
Acting as the New South Wales Government's crisis communication team to address the bushfires ravaging across the state, including national parks and the destruction of homes and animals, we identified early on the type of crisis as being a combination of natural disaster, challenges, and rumours. Crucially, our team had a crisis plan in place prior to the commencement of the New South Wales bushfires. This enabled us to be proactive in the golden hour and led to an early identification of the crisis type, assessment of reputation, resources, and stakeholders. As emulated by Fernbanks, before an organisation can develop a crisis management plan or crisis communications plan, it must determine which crisis the organisation is most likely to face. Its usefulness is directly associated with how specific it is to a particular type of crisis. If a fire occurs, the Public Relations Department should have, in a specific plan, information about its evacuation procedures and fire experts for spokespersons. We assessed the risk to the New South Wales Government's reputation by considering the severity of the bushfires, previous experience with similar matters, the potential of harm to stakeholders, and the probability of negative media attention, which was likely to be unfavourable to our organisation. The press and media do not always reflect reality. They can merely shape and filter it. In crises, the media tends to focus only on a few issues, leading the public to perceive those issues as more important than others. We know that issues management seeks to identify potential, emerging, or actual trends, as well as concerns likely to affect the company and their key stakeholders. For these reasons, it was important for our client that we directly address the main issue at play and not be distracted by the rumour elements of the crisis. While the Premier's character was attacked, we wanted simply to stick to the facts and deliver key messages to the public by communicating honestly, ethically, and sensitively. This allows for a rebuild of trust from stakeholders, which is a critical factor in maintaining a positive reputation. Our team's original response in the golden hour is as follows.
The current fires ravaging across the state are devastating, presenting significant danger and challenges to our people and communities, with the loss of homes, threatening of our ecosystems, and putting our selflessly brave first responders at risk. We, the state government, are hearing the concerns expressed by our communities and are dedicated to responding as efficiently as possible. We are taking every measure to reduce danger to all. The continuation and increased mobilisation of emergency teams, allocation of resources, on-ground support, timely delivery of safety measures via radio and text messages, which include live notifications of updated areas of concern, evacuation instructions, shelter information, supplies, and safety tips. We are focusing on communicating to key stakeholders via ongoing media releases, the government website and social media accounts, in the interest of providing one source of truth across all relevant parties, such as emergency responders, government officials and employees, law enforcement, transportation organisations, and non-for-profit organisations. The New South Wales Government has been involved in ongoing discussions with the federal government. We acknowledge this can be a lengthy process whereby resources and funds should be allocated promptly. Unfortunately, we have faced challenges to strengthen these policies that will improve the timeliness and effectiveness of the resource distribution as a result of the ongoing internal debates between our levels of government. These debates and budget cuts are undoubtedly a factor and have contributed to the extent of this current natural disaster. In saying that, we intend on taking the appropriate steps to prevent such atrocities like this happening again, and to hold those responsible for any such incidents accountable moving forward. Thank you.
To inform our strategic choices when we approach the crisis, we found that applications of Situational Crisis Communication Theory, or SCCT for short, and Attribution Theory to have aided our responses significantly. Using SCCT helped us determine what we needed to communicate to the Premier based on the type of crisis and reputational damage that our organization was facing. This is so that we could respond with the correct key messages to restore their image. This helped us assess the scale of reputational damage the government suffered from criticisms of their ignorance of early bushfire warnings and their slow support for firefighters, and devise a response that addresses all of these issues without diminishing them. Attribution theory was also applied to gauge what specific communication strategy we needed to use in regards to the reputational risk and the extent of the organization's accountability for it. Incidents the organization had no control over needed to be addressed differently compared to something they were actually accountable for. Considering the primary threats were out-of-control bushfires, rumors of the affair, and government infighting, we found that the only issues of high accountability were few, and adjusted our responses accordingly to restore the image of the organization and use simple denial strategies to deal with rumors and challenges. As a result, the way in which we applied both SCCT and attribution theory helped our group become extremely flexible in assessing what was going on and understanding the best course of action. Every response we gave during the daily scenarios made us consider what approach we were going to take, what the press would say about our response, which stakeholders we would prioritize, and think about how we can be as concise as possible with the limitations of our word count and our time limit. Outside of those two theories, image restoration theory had a large role to play in our responses as well, where elements of this theory's focus on accounting for organizational actions that contributed to the crisis had helped us shape the key messages we advised on. Image restoration theory also took root as a general premise of what our efforts were aiming to achieve, helping our organization survive the crisis through the encouragement of transparency and honesty to repair its image. It wouldn't have been possible without the combined effort of the team or the application of these theories.
In completing this crisis simulation, we learnt many valuable lessons on the entirety of responding to crises. It is one thing reading and learning about crisis communication and how to handle a crisis, but by actively responding to a crisis situation helped in understanding it better in order to make specific recommendations to crisis teams in the future based on our simulation and our team's response. From the daily updates on the situation we received throughout the week, we learnt the importance of staying alert on not just the main situation occurring, but every aspect of it, including how it is being portrayed in the media and the general public opinions. In the bushfire crisis, it was clear that public opinions on the fires and the government's choices were negatively affecting and further developing the crisis. Being aware on what is being said across the media and internally is vital in responding in a way which will benefit all stakeholders. Each day the bushfire crisis grew larger. Rumours were spreading across the media, and while staying up to date with this is needed, it was important to not be entirely distracted and stay focused on the real issue of the fire and what was being done to help it. From the simulation, we also learnt how fast-paced and intense crises are from the moment they begin. It is important to stay organised throughout the crisis and to stick to a goal such as maintaining a good image. Having a crisis plan ready in case of a crisis and utilising situational crisis communication theory is highly valuable to a crisis team in staying organised. There are certain things which are out of your control during a crisis. An example from the simulation being the Prime Minister's refusal to involve the army during the bushfires. Figuring out within the crisis team what points and key messages need to be addressed will help you in being effective and organised. We recommend crisis teams in the future focus on acting efficiently as new information is exposed and as the situation grows, as responding slowly in a fast-paced situation will only further add to the severity of the situation.
Our team showcased efficiency in gathering key ideas and messages we felt were important and releasing it through communication channels such as media releases and press conferences, which we would recommend to other teams. From this experience, we also recommend clear and constant communication from all members of the crisis team. It allows greater efficiency and for a more consistent response, and we feel that is one major lesson learned from our crisis response. We found that staying consistent in the key messages addressed to the public is highly valuable in terms of resolving a crisis.
The New South Wales government approached today to acknowledge the extent of the bushfire and show empathy for affected community, concentrating on the transparency and attract-building responsibility. Our team advised the Premier to deliver the detailed updates on the flames and the government's efforts to fight them to protect the public. Key message will underline the situation, dedicating resources and giving timely information, including evacuation and safety government instruction. Our team also recommend the continue utilizing press releases, government websites, social media, and direct messaging to reach affected residents, emergency personnel, government officials, and the public. This is to help the public see the New South Wales government and the Premier to be seen as acting properly and proactively on public safety efforts. The response to claim the funding cuts, the team encouraged the Premier to focus on proactive firefighting action and future strategies. This method attempts to restore public trust, instill responsibility, and reassure stakeholders such as New South Wales citizens, other government sectors, and emergency teams of the government's commitments managing the crisis at hand.